Guten Tag und herzlich willkommen zum heutigen Programm von Encounters. Zusammen mit Dorothee Schisser vom Team von TRESOR und mir begrüße ich Sie herzlich zu diesem Rahmenprogramm, das wir anbieten. Mein Name ist Philipp Kunze. Ich bin der Gründer der Organisation World Crafts, eine Plattform zur Förderung von Handwerk, die dieses Encounter-Programm sponsert und mithilft durchzuführen. Heute ist es der dritte Tag. Bereits 2 Tage haben wir mit sehr spannenden Gesprächen hier durchgeführt und heute geht es vor allem um die Zukunft. Wir haben sehr spannende, vielseitige und lustige Referenten auch hier. Es sind Überraschungen vielleicht sogar noch geplant, ich weiß es nicht, aber wir lassen uns überraschen. Gerne gebe ich das Wort noch Dorothee und wünsche Ihnen viel Spaß.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our third day of talks at Encounters Talk, presented by WordCraft. We are very proud to welcome here, the future of craft with a combination of 3D technologies, modern technologies, and art and craft. And we have 3 high-end artists here who will speak about their work, moderated by the designer Valérie Notter de Rabanal. Valérie, the word is to you.
Hello, welcome to the talk about craft and new technology. I'm also very pleased to welcome you and to have these 3 guests here on stage, which is 3 personalities who are nicely completing but also contrasting with each other. So first, please come on stage. We have this award-winning jeweler from Germany, who is also based in Great Britain, who fuses the traditional with the contemporary. Let's welcome on stage Silvia Weidenbach. From Israel, a cutting-edge contemporary artist whose work sits at the fusion of art and technology, please welcome on stage Eyal Gever. And last but not least, designer and conceptor and visionary challenger of the scene from Germany but networking worldwide, Christoph Völcker. Before each one of them gets the opportunity to shortly present themselves and the range of their professional activities, you shall know that following we will talk about for 1 hour, and at the end you'll get the opportunity to ask questions. Please, Silvia, please start.
Good. So thanks for inviting me and for the great support, and it's a really pleasure to be in this interesting circle of different approaches with digital tools and expressions. And what you see in the background is a video which I did 3 years ago with a British filmmaker. The idea was because I'm a jeweler, but I also wanted to see how my jewelry interacts with the body, you know, and what kind of context. And so we did this interesting film where you see the pieces in action. Yeah, and I maybe give you a little bit of quick background because I think it makes sense, especially in the context of TRESOR Contemporary, because I'm trained as a traditional silversmith, so a 3-year apprenticeship in Germany. Then I studied fine art in an art university with focus on jewelry. So I had also the opportunity to work with materials and try to find my own language. And then I studied at the Royal College where I did my master, and that was a very exciting time because at the beginning I was a very analog person, you know. I had also a hate-love relationship with the computer. But so London was a quite interesting place as well because this diversity of people. And I saw what is possible with these new machines 9 years ago, and what the people had in their pockets, new materials and haptic devices. And so I was really curious and started to discover the world of these new possibilities. And now I think I get a quite good overview what is possible, and how you can stretch the material, and how you could combine it as well with the traditional crafts, because I'm very interested in not replacing the past, thinking when does it make sense, and create a new dialogue. And yeah, you see here something in action, and if you are interested in touching them, because the tactile experience is very important, and that you also actually enjoy this new way of thinking and developing a kind of new virtuosity, then maybe have later a look at my stage. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
My turn?
Yes.
May I have the...
Yes.
So, hi, good afternoon. Very happy to be here. My name is Eyal. So we should see it starting to play. So the referee is forward. Yeah. I do art. My palette is code. I deliberately chose to create a studio where I create art that pushes what I hope the language forward. And I use software, normally code that I develop with my team. This piece is, I call it a piece of ocean. It's a piece of ocean, meaning that I cropped it. It's a simulation where I'm not inviting you to immerse into. I'm literally tackling you with the subject. Is it real? Are we living in a computer simulation? Is reality fake or manipulated or simulated? Because this is a trajectory we're evolving into. So this was exhibited with William Turner at the Light Museum, next to his paintings of eruptions and stormy seas and volcanoes. It's printed in transparent resin. This work is a waterfall. Many times my art deals with subject matters that bugs me. It could be pollution, it could be things we do negatively to the world or to one another, but also beautiful things we do. In this case, we passed the peak oil point. We're sucking oil out of Earth. So you can see this piece here in the booth, and it's printed using Stratasys. Another work here is collision. I'm interested really to create situations which we normally humans are not used to seeing. And this is why I'm kind of using software simulation and freezing moments using 3D printers without almost touching it, you know? Just letting the physics talk for itself. This is a 4-meter sculpture, and I captured the pinnacle moment of the simulation. In this case, it's the collision. And I approached a lot of car manufacturers. So this is Bentley color. Here's another piece of work where it's really when you pop up a balloon and eventually pops in your face. It's like a pop of a sphere moment. And you can see the sculpture. One more work which I'm proud to show today. So 3 years ago, I was invited by NASA to be the first artist that will actually produce a piece of art in space. I got a phone call one day, and they said we're working on a zero-gravity 3D printer. And here's a 1-minute documentary. It's a longer documentary, but 1 minute advice have done a documentary, so this is 1 minute that will explain the project. Can you put volume on? Put it again. Is there volume on? No volume? Anyway, what it says here, that I've been approached by NASA, and they chose me because my art is basically starts from code and it finishes in a physical, tangible object. I chose the subject of laughter, only human laugh. I invited the world in December, a few months ago, to literally laugh by releasing an app. When you laughed, your voice painted a 3-dimensional, what I call laugh star. And the spectrogram of the mathematical data of your laugh was encapsulated in the final object. In a matter of a month, over 100,000 people submitted their laugh stars in the app from 150 countries. And I asked them to select which laugh star, which laugh they think should represent humanity. And what I'll show you now is the moment, this was March 10. This is the moment where the astronaut, very famous astronaut, Peggy Whitson, since then she arrived back to Earth. This is the moment she literally picks the laugh star from the zero gravity 3D printer in the International Space Station. And what I'll show you now is the moment my laugh star is really floating in space. And I'm very happy to be alive in a time where still, you know, art was important to humanity, even though it doesn't provide any return on investment. And they invited an artist to do a project which literally is just for the sake of reminding us how beautiful humanity is and how fragile we are and how quickly we can fuck it up. So this was the purpose of the work, and here you see a floating laugh star in space, which encapsulates mathematically human laughter. Hopefully, 10,000 years from now, whenever future humans or somebody else can find it and decipher mathematically how we sounded today. So it's a mathematical kind of, message in the bottle, if you will. So I ran out of time, but the last work I can refer to is the one which is live, actually ended last week. One more minute? Is that okay?
Yes.
So unfortunately, I don't think you can hear it, but so my art involved not just 3D printing or fabrication. It starts with a simulation, and this work was commissioned by the ZKM Museum. They gave me a castle in Karlsruhe. It's a huge castle. And they have over like 30 or 40 top projectors, projection mapping. And the work I've done here, I'm literally flooding the castle. It starts gradually, and the water gets stronger and stronger. It becomes almost like a huge Niagara Falls, which eventually washes the castle. And then a series of waves, which become tsunamis, arrive, and they rebuild the castle. And the reason is, I call the work cleansing. It could be a personal, internal cleansing process where one feels that he cannot or she cannot take it anymore. And this contemporary, intense world, this is sometimes the feeling I have. But also it could be global reference to the global situation with global warming, the pollution, everything we do to Earth. And at times we feel that Mother Earth cannot take us anymore. So I'm inviting the audience to a 10-minute, very intensive experience where I'm literally sucking your soul out and bringing it back to you at the end, and letting you think, is that really the trajectory we should continue? Or should we do something that will provide a better life to our children? So this is the work cleansing you're watching up here. That's what I do.
Thank you. Here. I go directly pass it over to you.
Thanks.
Oh, we have sound at the end.
No, the sound comes. So skip mine and get the sound back. So, hello, my name is Christoph Völcker. Thank you for having me here. Well, to introduce me shortly, why I'm sitting here, I'm not an artist. I'm just, let's say, a designer, an interior architect, and are there some pictures coming? No, yeah. And I work with 3D printing for about almost 20 years now. Even if I'm just 23 years old. So that chair you can see here is created data for myself, for my studio. It was sent to Tokyo, printed over there, and from there on it was on a roadshow like in Milan or in London, Tokyo itself, for exhibitions, and that is back was in 2005. So it was one of the first printed chairs that was just a rendering. So I worked on some concepts on 3D printing as well. That one is a division wall, just a small part, and you can add it in different sizes, different shapes. And you can see that I was working on the link, how they can be connected, like a flower which opens and closes and then stick it together. So you don't need any more joints if you work with 3D printing. So these are the interests in me. But yeah, I'm working as a craftsman actually. So I was starting with furniture, because starting with interior architecture. This is a chaise longue which was proposed to be produced by Moroso in Milan. And here's some really old interior architecture projects. So what I'm showing this to you, that you know, okay, this guy, he's not an artist, he's a designer, interior architect, and somehow is dealing with 3D printing. So I'm networking a lot with artists and 3D designers worldwide and help them get their things done, to get it produced, as I work a lot with the 3D printing industry. And what is my aim is I'm focusing on how it's going to be in future, how it's going to be soon or maybe in really long future. And that's the point where we met first time Eyal as well. Me and my wife, with our studio, we created Pushing Boundaries, which is a 3D challenge worldwide, and it reaches up to 65 million people so far worldwide. And there he submitted the Love Star, and this is one of the, so actually that in white, a little bit tiny, is the one you just seen in the video, and I'm gonna hand it to you. This is actually a reprint down on Earth in Germany. So with this challenge we focus on how future will be, all the concepts. It's not about just art or design, it's about medicine, medtech, fashion tech, and all those different categories where it's already done with 3D printing, to show the audience what can be done today and soon. With Voxel World I'm here with as a head of design and production. We do have our booth over there, B6, where we have Eyal's work presented, and there we start on producing lifestyle products out of the 3D printer, which could be individualized, work with the designers and state-of-the-art is those things like lights from Jannik Kittenen, or this light from a Dutch designer, which could be individualized, because customization is a point where craft is done. So if you go to a carpenter, it's always individualized, but it's really long time working, and we work on how can be products be individualized for an end consumer and directly done and brought to you. Art pieces which can't be done on another way. It's not about customization, but art pieces where people think, how can get this individual or these ideas which I have in my mind really brought to life as a real product, and there 3D printing is helpful. Fashion. It really starts. Voxel World, we created this year already the second show together in collaboration with a car company. And we had been lucky that the Germany Next top models were working in there. So, and I was the one who helped them fitting and everything. So 3D printing is not just 3D printing, it brings you to several really nice projects. So you can see it. We had this year, it was in June, about 40 different looks worldwide in fashion. And it can be done and worn. You can wear this actually now. And here Eyal Gever's Waterfall, which we totally love, and it was for us really the aim to present it to craft here at TRESOR. Nadine Fischer asked us, you should try to get that, and we've been in talk to that, in touch very close, and we imported it now from Israel. And here you have the chance to have a look at it. Yeah, and that is my work for here for Voxel World. Thanks.
So you see we have a wide range of interesting aspects of these real different works. So as a common denominator we focus in this talk on the digital generated additive manufacturing process, also known as 3D printing. And so all of them do really different things, but using 3D, at least in some of their works. Finally, you all need data. You all need digital codes to print out your work. How do you get that data, Silvia?
So I try different ways. I'm also a very hungry and curious person to find out what is at the moment possible. So I started with haptic devices where I have a haptic arm and I can sculpture in the digital context. So I get a feedback from the computer. That was so my entrance ticket in this world. But then I also use like programs which are available, Rhino, ZBrush, etc. to make more precise things, because these haptic devices allow me to design in a very playful, intuitive and haptic way, which is for me a key point, because from the thinking it's very similar. Yeah? But I'm also interested in scanning. You know, I also did a project with the Royal College and with alumni students that we say, there's an amazing museum in London called the Search and Soul Museum, full of a lot of artifacts, yeah? And we said, okay, we scan the bust of Search and Soul and we split it in 25 fragments. It would not be possible to take an old ancient museum object and split it in 25 parts to create something new. Yeah, so on one side I'm also interested to use digital technology like scanning to create a new analog outcome. Yeah, so because then the students reacted with data or with a 3D printed form to create something new, which was then sold later in a museum shop. But I'm also interested at the moment, I use a lot of open sources. Open sources means that are programs which are able to download for free from the World Wide Web. Yeah, and then you have there some limitations, but I like this idea and I like this display aspect in it. So it's in a way a mixture of everything to create the digital data.
Data in my case, so I'm fascinated by sort of the time that I'm alive, because all of a sudden we have this endless toolbox, which enables one to fabricate and produce impossible things. Where I am coming from is sort of trying to invite us into experiencing a moment, meaning, that not necessarily you need to sort of know a lot about art, but the way I judge my art is, does it give you sort of, you know, gives you a hit in your chest. Most of the data I produce myself, meaning I have a team and we develop code. It includes physics and math, and I try to kind of create art pieces or experiences that make sense of using a technology. Otherwise, you know, it's the meaning that drives, the meaning of my art drives the need to develop the tools. Many times I didn't find the tools off the shelf, and a lot of the liquid simulations or my work is really years of programming. Sometimes it takes 3 years to work on a series of pieces because we build the software. Now I'm very, very fascinated about the next level, which is literally utilizing the speed of the CPU, the computer process, and the graphical processes to enable me to create simulations that are live, that are literally alive now. So imagine the ocean, where you can literally play with the water and create waves yourself and see it responding in real time. But also I'm investigating simulating music and people's movement and showing it not just as a physical sculpture, but as a part of an architecture. So I'm working on this project now where it's a location where people come in and go. Many people come in and go every day. I'm not allowed to mention yet where or what. But there are sensors, and a big part of the architecture utilize projection mapping. So literally it comes to life when somebody is in front. So when you're in front of the sculpture, it comes to life in ways we haven't experienced yet. So this is where the data comes from in my work.
So, but for 3D printing, it's more like
So I'm taking moments. So let's say the liquid side. If there were painters who can tell stories with oil painting or marble, in my case, I tell stories in liquid simulations.
Yeah.
And then I freeze a moment. I literally freeze a moment that seems to me really beautiful or strong or painful. You know, a moment just before something crashes or explodes, and I freeze that and I use printers. It's very important for me not to touch, you know, when we talked about it before, the work from the code to the final fabrication. There's no human touch, which we know there is. Somebody needs to take it out of the printer, clean it, etc. But just in an essence, you know, it's like mixing my own ultramarine in my studios. It's sort of my craft that I do.
Well, you do have like this haptic arm. You really like modulate clay somehow.
In a digital way, yeah, but I get a feedback. But for me, the final touch is very important,
right.
You know, because I want to control as well.
Of
And I'm as well not really happy with the end result, what I get out of the printer. For me, it's still dead. Yeah, so I need to give them a kind of life back. So for me, it's very important to interact and dye it, take it away, you know, interact with the precious materials or yeah. So that is for me very important. Or where I see also at the moment the problem with the whole
right.
thing, that if I compare it to you know, at the moment I'm artist in residence in DNA, so I'm in an absolutely amazing situation to really handle the old objects, yeah, and I'm fascinated about it, you know. And this is a material quality, or also this is creating with material a kind of paradise.
Right.
And so this is very important for me to create also or push the material, or also the process and the dialogue with the engineers, that I say, you know, if you thought about this, can you not push it a little bit more in this direction? But this is only my personal interest, so this is why I'm still, my eyes and ears are open when I see or hear people talking about this concept, not touching it anymore, because I see the post-process.
Right. If I can add one more thing, if I can share what I'm after in my art. So there's going to be different input and outputs. But the biggest thing that disturbs me or impresses me today is the innovation and the progress is too quick. It's too fast. The biggest, huge radical innovation is already approaching us like a meteor that is about to crash on Earth. We know that. We cannot stop it. Why do I need iPhone 10? I don't know. I don't really need it, but I know I'll have it. And this is kind of a journey that we're already, it's a tsunami that we're all carried into. So as an artist, I live in the digital revolution. And I'm looking to create art that asks the question, asks me, are we living in a digital simulation? Maybe it's all computerized. Maybe each one of us is a program. And one of the projects I was asked by Channel 4 to think about a work that they will document. And I started to think, maybe I can, you know, Shakespeare has a sentence, he says, if you really, really listen carefully to nature, nature has music for you. And so I started thinking about it and said, okay, well, how about that I'll run different drones around the world, write a software that when the drone flies, it can literally do what I've done with voice to a sculpture, but opposite. Meaning, look at a mountain terrain, and in real time convert it back to music. And so we can listen to music that nature creates. So maybe a mountain can sing, you know, or icebergs, which have totally different topology than certain hills. Each one of those topologies will create totally different music. So for me, it's a fresh way to look at the world, at nature, at us as data, really, as expressive data, and then parse it to something which was not impossible before. Because it's a playground. We have this ability now with math and physics and computers. So this is really where I'm coming from, to kind of, you know, challenge us.
It's an interesting question, interesting way of looking at curious what is the outcome of it.
Yeah.
Also, you like challenge a lot what is possible with what can we get with all these new possibilities. But at the same time, you work a lot with more applied outcomes of the 3D printer, like when you work with medtech and stuff. So it's another way of getting to data.
Well, we work with different data getting. I think it's really the same. What Eyal said is we live in this time where we are able to use sensors to combine with our senses. What we get involved from biological, from everything, we can use those data to produce something or to blink you in an eye on that and focus on something. If it comes to a real product, well, you can capture a moment with that. If it comes to a product which you need to sell on a lifestyle product or whatever, you need to have a possibility to create data on yourself, or maybe you know an architect or a 3D artist, a designer who's able to work with data. What we as well created is for everyone sitting here is not really, maybe never used a CAD program before, is that we created a CAD program which is in the World Wide Web, just running in time, and you can choose your object and change it the way you want to have it. So it's really all about data. Even the arm you work with, this is a possibility to work as a sculpture, which we know from our past, like getting something done in clay. Everyone has two hands and is able to use that. And the industry created this arm, and you see your sculptural clay vase, for example, on the screen. With the arm, you have the feeling you touch it, you really touch it. But a certain point is the iPhone. You mentioned the iPhone. Apple, they teach us how to create data or to use interfaces. Everyone knows this direction. It's for transformation. It's getting a picture bigger. So we are at the point that we are already used to work with data, to work on a flat screen and play with the data. It's just a meaning of time and the point how we are able to use maybe your hands to get something done in shape, just in the air, what it's going to be created, real data which can be produced later. So we have sensors like Kinect cameras, like cameras scanning you, scanning your hands moving. There are so many different possibilities to use and to create data. It's just a meaning of time. And we, or myself, I'm curious about seeing all those different things or techniques you can use for that. And it's always depending what you gonna produce. So if it's capturing a moment, sensoring is totally great, the best for that. If you create a product, the arm or getting really programs done for that is perfect.
Okay. Yes, so very much depending on what you do and the field you work, most work with CAD programs then?
I'm right now, we are focusing this editor thing, and the editor thing is a CAD program which is really easy to use. And for me myself, yeah, I'm using CAD programs, but I'm using 3D artists for that. I'm using just a pen and a sheet of paper. I do my sketch. I love the old-fashioned style. I just sketch my stuff in 3D and talk to my artists, and they are so much more quicker. They are like 10 years younger, and they are so quick. I could do that on the CAD, but they are quicker, and time is money.
Yeah. So a lot about this, where you interfere and where you get the data, and also where you can like change parameters in the process within the project, how you adjust them. It also depends a lot of what material you use, what you choose to print out your thing at the end, and what possibilities or strong points it has, and why you choose this or that one. So as working in all these fields, could you tell us what you most work with? You use all these, you know, all these different techniques. I think you're like the widest in this field. Maybe you can give a short insight of what
the different materials.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to 3D printing, they started actually 3D printing with paper. Laying one sheet of paper, next sheet of paper, next sheet of paper. So 3D printing is layer-wise production. It doesn't count which kind of material you actually have. If you can add it onto each other, it's additive manufacturing, then you call it 3D printing. So you can use paper, you can use normally plastics, which is the most famous things, well-known things, plastics. It's a nylon, it's a polyamide. Well, these days it's quite easy to print metal. Every kind of material you can think about, which you can have as a powder or as a liquid, and which can change to a hard surface again, you can use for 3D printing. So if you want to print ceramics, yeah, you can go for ceramics. If you want to print metal, gold, everything, it's possible so far. It's not so easy. It's always different. So every material has its own borders. So and you have to design it differently because we all know clay shrinks. So if you print clay, well, it shrinks. And even though it has to be liquid and has to be heated and everything, and the process is heating itself, so it's not always the same clay we are used to work as a craftsman. It's a different clay, or it's similar. So you have to, it's really not easy. You have to be a specialist in the same field you want to have to achieve your product of that, your object of that. But everything, really, kind of everything, I think everything is possible.
For me, just to interrupt, working with NASA was a crazy experience, but I'll share that a big part of it was also not just to create something that has meaningful on an artistic level or a universal level, but technically. I remember discussions about that, you know, I am allowed to use X amount of minutes of energy consumption in space. I am allowed to utilize the astronaut time for X amount of minutes. The printer limitations of gas releases, a lot of health issues, but also on the piece itself, I wasn't, you know, I had to think that it won't have jaggy edges, that they can get stinged, or God forbid in the International Space Station somebody would get hurt because of my sculpture. So I'm listening to all of us, and the subject is, yeah, there is a big revolution in fabrication, and I think it's going to get even more complicated in a way where jewelry won't be just for the sake of decorating myself. It will have probably 4, 5, 6 years from now, embedded cameras, sensors, blood pressure, whatever people like you or like me will come up with, where functionality, material, execution, things are becoming smart, and they're not just, you know, for the sake of pleasing our eyes. You know, people are starting to embed connectivity into objects. Am I touching the subject that you were thinking about or not?
I think the word of jewelry is a little magic, or if you look at the history, it's not only that's part of it, but it's only you find there are absolutely amazing conceptual artists who move far away from the materiality, which have a dialogue with the concept of jewelry, the meaning of jewelry. So I think that happens the same. What happens?
I think jewelry is really.
I'm personally interested in both, but also in creating kind of desire, these kind of things. You know, I don't value it or building hierarchies, because I think we are over it. But I think, it's quite a very exciting topic as well, which makes bridges to many different fields.
I know. I'm challenging us.
Yeah, no, I like
So,
it.
so now the iPhone, we know the latest one comes, and not just the iPhone, with the facial recognition. I've already seen designers starting to think about pendants that have this embedded cameras inside. So I have beautiful jewelry or ring, but it's kind of a, you know, it's a double-edged sword because it's kind of documenting and recording everything, but it's also so beautiful and cool, and it lets me know who is the person I'm talking to. We're getting into a world which is totally different even today, and it's coming so fast. So as artists, as designers, obviously challenges more, all of us here, because a lot of it's not just execution and aesthetic, it's also approaches. It's the worst thing that can happen on stage. But it's challenging us, not just the production, the process, but also the meaning and what we are providing. And yesterday, 2 days ago, I said, you know what, maybe in 5 years from now, we are all of us are constantly documented, our faces, they know that it's my personal thing or my personal fuck up. Then we're all in this equal situation where everything is documented about all of us, and nobody can cheat anymore or lie anymore. It's just, you know, plain common denominator. And I think the revolution we're experiencing now on craft, and we may be talking to people and they say, so what is a CNC and what is a 3D printer? So let's say 5 years from now, it won't be a question anymore. And the question will be even much more about value, meaning, you know, it's not just beautiful, but it's also extremely smart or etc. So I think it's changing also again.
Yeah, I think products get smart. If we would combine your work, it could be very beautiful and emotional jewelry, capturing
Moments of feelings.
senses, feelings, and help the people to interact with all the others. And this is soon to come. It's already there, actually. There are designers like Benash Farah from Los Angeles, and she's working on those things. So she's working on fashion tech things which interact with the audience, and they capture the eyes, and if they move anywhere, all the fashion is moving there as well. So, yeah, I'm totally agree that we're at this stage that in 5 years you won't even ask why do I need to use a 3D printer, what they are for. 3D printing is just the thing to get data into real life back again. I think that's just the...
Yeah, like to condense it like that. But still I think the interest of getting to know it and find out what it is for a lot of people is a big question. It's not so well spread still. A lot of new work is about haptics and touching it. You brought it with some pieces.
Maybe we can have it.
I think
I think maybe this white stuff. There are fragments of bracelets which the process was something much was not super good. So there was a mistake in the powder. But it shows you maybe for some of you who never ever have an idea how this process works, layer by layer, and you see how it looks like inside. And I think that.
Shall we give it to them?
Yeah, I think it's quite nice. Then the rest is, you know, because we talked about the post-process, where I'm also experimenting at the moment with metal, and this is printed in titanium. One, it's really rough from the finish, and the other one is a little bit shiny, so that you can see what is possible. Or also with support materials, and your example was quite nice with using the flower as an inspiration to connect as well how you set stones, thinking about the flexibility of materials. So maybe.
Yes, I think this is interesting for people still. I mean, there's so many different possibilities, and I think touching it is really to understand it also, to see how it's how the surfaces are.
But by the way, when it's something, I think for us funny, but when you actually use those smart technologies, they look really dumb eventually. Because when you think about, wow, it's science fiction, it comes out of nothing, but then it's a very, analogical way to actually do it layer by layer by layer by layer. So when you watch it over and over and over again, you say, you know, how come we haven't thought about it like 50 years ago? Because it seems so simple. And there is this video of this MIT guy who is going in Sahara. Have you seen it?
Marcus Fischer.
It's like a genius.
Yeah, I think that's quite a nice example. Marcus Kaiser studied at the same time at Royal College, and he developed his own printer. You know, I think as well this printing in our field of this making, it's not only suitable to use it directly as a product. I think you can make mock-ups and to cast it for industrial context, but it's also interesting to make tools. Or he built his own printer where he went to the desert, used the sand, yeah, as a natural material, the sun as the laser source, and with positioning in a way like IKEA style, yeah, low tech, really smart. And
basically see him coming with a few Bedouins in the morning, opens an office in like the middle of nowhere, produces those amazing cut-come shapes, objects out of a sun and sand, and then the truck comes at the end when the sun down and puts his office on the truck and goes home.
And I think it's very smart to see the possibility or the diversity that this, let's say, new cabinet of curiosity starts, or we're adding this digital experience.
It's out of nothing, right? Out of nothing, somebody
without any energy,
consuming light, sun, sand to produce magic. Yeah, this is to me one of this video is one of the most beautiful innovators. You know, just using nothing and making something out of nothing.
And the outcome as well, I think is quite exciting to see, because it looks not like 3D printing, because you still have different granulation of sand in the desert, and then it looks very made by hand in a way, or so that's also quite exciting.
And this actually starts from this point. It was an art project which Marcus had on there, and this started. Let NASA think and all the others think about how could we use this project to print pieces on moon, how to print in deserts, how to print something to let drones print something anywhere where no one can get there. And this is again the thing, use material anywhere else, use techniques in these times now, use sensors and everything to create something where human beings might never have been before. And this is a challenge which 3D printing can do.
Yeah, like the design here printed there.
Yeah.
Like, your love, by the way, do you print it with moon dust?
Yes. So that's this particular was not with moon dust, but definitely the next project they offered me to work with them is it's going to take a while, a few years, but similar approach to actually build a zero gravity 3D printer on the moon that will actually print structures on the moon using dust. Well, you take rocks, you grind them on the moon, you use the sun as a source of energy and array, and print shelters or objects that astronauts can actually, because there's no, I mean, asteroids constantly fall on the moon, so they need some kind of fall protection. Yeah.
I want to print moon dust.
You would work with moon dust?
Yeah, I would love, if you could introduce it to the guys of NASA.
By the way, this group has started the first factory in space now, so this is also mind-blowing. So to create optical beams, like optical. Today you need really tall buildings, and you need, those optical threads are very expensive. So what they've done, they're literally producing in space in zero gravity the most clear, beautiful, high quality optical threads, because they can just have a tiny machine produce those in an endless distance, in zero gravity, and now it's a factory already. They're producing those optical, we call them optical rays, or where they deliver data,
Okay.
And apparently in space already they can do it much cheaper and much better quality than Earth. There's no gravity, and they're not limited
to rent.
To space. Yeah, space, and they can just send it back to Earth. It's So when you work with those kind of people, you're kind of thinking, well, my crazy ideas are kind of not that crazy anymore. But it's all about trajectory. I think that if we want in parallel learn how to use the tools and how to protect what we're doing, I mean, with all this plastic that we're producing also. You know, I read this sentence about that in 2050 there's going to be more plastic bottles in the ocean than fish. Since then I cannot recover. I cannot. I have a lot of questions about this whole term about global warming because there's a lot of money and politics involved. But one thing for sure, we're polluting. You know, we're definitely polluting and consuming. So I'm hoping that the next phase of those inventions will actually do good in reversing us to greener energy, greener things, and smarter things than the trajectory humanity has been in the last 100 years since the Industrial Revolution. So I hope this revolution is going to be actually smarter, not just technology-wise, but
yeah, it's interesting when you see like it's a way of democratization of production also. Like if you can 3D print your bowl, you might print your bowl every day before you eat something, and or eat the bowl. Yes, so there's also a question of how ecological will it be? Are there materials? I think there's a lot going on. Maybe you know more about how ecological materials or like reuse or shred and reprint.
Yeah. So actually the bottle theme is a theme, and there's a company called IGUS, they are working on shredding bottles which can be reused and bring them into a filament and use them for these FDM printers, so the normal printers you can use or you can buy everywhere. And then there are lots of universities thinking about the materials. There's this city called Palmyra, which is totally damaged, and it's in the Netherlands, and university, they submitted at this Free Pine Exchange as well, they won the prize in material. They invented a material which has the same looking like sandstone and column in that size, like that size. The whole production of that to rebuild Palmyra is just €3. So if we combine that and printing our polyamide things, this size is about, just in printing and using the machine, is about €1,500 at least, even more, maybe €2,000. And so they invented to use a normal printer, which is quite easy to produce. Everyone could produce a printer because it's so old-fashioned to have two-dimensional third X in that. And they invented that printer and used now this material, which comes from a reuse of material. Then there's another group who used salt from salt lakes. In deserts, there are lots of salt lakes where you can't drink the water, and there are just everywhere salt. And this is material which is a waste, just no one can use it. And they started using this salt as a material to print stuff, whatever. They don't know yet. They started with lights and whatever. They are not in a real good use for that now, but they used the material, the waste material, which the human being is not able to use for anything else. So there are really good movements in that, but still it's more the movement when it comes to budget. The industry always uses metal or polyamide or ABS or whatever, because they get paid for that and it's done quite easily. I do work with lots of students, and if it comes to open source materials, the movements, it's from the students, from the base. And that's why I keep an eye on that, to bring that forward. So it will be something for this one.
Yeah, so often it's a question of price also, and often when you see like these 3D printed things, you see it's 3D printed because you see the layers.
Yeah.
And so is this something we will live with, or it will some some things you stand, you have used big after work just to make it like more smooth and brilliant. What do you think? We get used to the surface and accept it, or is it just a way?
I think it's both. I actually tell all my designers, why do you want to change the surface? If you cut wood and use it as a wood, everyone knows wood will get another color and will crack, and it will, that's the thing we want to have, because wood is lively. And so why do you want to change the surface from a production point of view? But we are still the humans. We are used to injection molding. The surface is always really smooth. We are used to buy the best cars, which are the best in the air channel, and so it needs to be really smooth. Our objects we do have at the booths, then they have those smooth surfaces like Eyal's waterfall, everything, because we're used to that. We want to see the reflections of light in everything. But as soon, and it will take, I would say, at least 10 to 15 years, that 3D printing is accepted as just another production method, and that no one is afraid of, oh, 3D printing, I'm gonna lose my job, whatever. It's not like that. But if we are used to, say, 3D printing is in our life, then we will be used to see those layers. Then we will be used to say, yeah, it's a 3D printing. Okay, but it's an intelligent way or thinking to use 3D printing in that way, and then I can accept that it's different looking, that it doesn't have to be similar like another plastic thing which is polished like hell and it's shiny. It doesn't need to be. 3D printing parts should be wisely done, and if it's wisely done, then I'm happy to see there's a wisely made product or art piece. And then I think it's good to have these layers. Why not?
What's your opinion for that?
I think maybe an interesting example is in context of metal printing, because what you already said is all the industry compares it constantly with the existing stuff like casting finishes, and they are not yet on this result. The question is for me, does it need to go to this result? Because you have some titanium printed sticks where you see one is more the rough thing, and you know, I get from my view interesting link to the granulation work, yeah? Like where we had these little gold dots, and if I see metal printing, I get there a kind of association, and I said, wow, maybe we can push it in the other side and create more some granulations higher, some granulations lower, and maybe we can brush it, and then the top one is shiny, the deeper one is more matte, you know, and this is also for me a very interesting quality. So I would not push the metal printing into the layer-free, shiny casting process. I would more play with, let's say, you can say, do you want triangle reduction, or do you go triangle wide over the, you know, that could be also like a stone, you facet, you know. I think you can apply the same thinking on your product and create your own facets. And this is for me an interesting thinking, or there I could see where it goes in own aesthetic and where we need to develop other parameters which you not compare anymore with the past. But this is, so we need to be open-minded, need to allow experiment and play, and then it starts with the creative dialogue that we maybe realize, wow, this is also quite interesting quality. That would be mine.
You remind me, 2.5 years ago, I was invited by Peter Weibel. Peter Weibel is the curator of the ZKM Museum, and he was running a projection Biennale, and a few very prestigious artists were invited. Each one got a physical building, a wall, something, and then they showed me my location. It was a lake. It was a lake. I looked at the lake and I said, and I love challenges, what do you do in the lake? Anyway, that led me to actually create this water wall. I created a water fountain I created a sculpture, which actually is, it is a sculpture, but it's a projection of water simulation on water. And it has a physical dimension of a sculpture. It literally contains space, you can move around it, but it's made out of water. And so it reminded me of this guy going to Sahara and out of sand making something unthinkable. So those processes, those processes and materials that we get access to, all of a sudden making a water dance out of water is not magical anymore. If you're trained to think about those weird combinations, you make this happen. And so that's why I said maybe 2 or 3 years from now, your jewelry is, you know, I'm sure it's not just going to be judged by the material or execution, but maybe on the
look at the fair later. To see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but we're like over with our hour. Maybe you can like just have a concluding sentence about what you think it's going, your work, or these opportunities in general.
So I think there's always the high end, and I think artists pushes the envelope. You know, people like us trying to push the envelope technically, etc. But I think where things are getting into is more to a point where you would literally talk to a software and tell the software, hey, can you just, you know, mix and match, and I would really like to look in a, you know, in a Art Nouveau style today. Can you just print those patterns for me, or print a chip? You can actually talk and verbally explain your machine, and the machine will actually execute. I think we're heading to a point where things will be smart, things will be much less you know, consuming, I hope, energy, and so I think the next 10 years will actually start to make use, not just invent new tools, but start to make use of those combinations that are much more friendly for the audience, the people, to use or create, and create those magical things that are actually not just beautiful, but literally have some meaning and utilities behind it. That's my opinion.
Very positive. Hope so. Yes. What would you say where it's going to, or
In my work,
in your work, if you want to?
wait and see.
Okay. So we let.
But I'm also very
ourselves.
interested in, for example, now we talked about the new iPhone, you know, and I think now with this augmented virtual reality, my imagination now starts to get crazy, yeah, as well in context of experience. We talked about experience, and in the context of jewelry, you know, the IKEA catalog is now available on your new iPhone, and you can make a picture of your home and see, oh, does this table look like very nice in my setting? You know, for jewelry, fantastic. Imagine you make a selfie of you at home, and then later you look, oh, what's this? The piece, or should I take this? So in context of experience, I think that is something which I also would like to look closer, to combine it, and yeah, but for me it's still really the dialogue of seeing what is possible, but also every time compare it with my heritage.
Right.
Yeah, because some things is often repeated where we think, wow, this is now magic and the evolution. And if I, for example, now look at the Gilbert collection in the V&A, where we have the porcelain boxes in the 18th century, that was at this time also an evolution, yeah, because porcelain was a new material. So it's not this, wow,
It's a meaning.
yeah, it's like continue like this, and we react on it, and we see how it drives us in which direction.
Okay, so if you have a last sentence to say where we go to.
Yeah, well, last sentence is okay. I said at the beginning, at the last point, I make naked and dance a bit. That was the aim, because it's an art fair. But last sentence, maybe be curious about 3D printing, about new technologies, not just 3D printing, like VR or whatever, augmented reality. This is students and artist work. They use the Flintstone, which is, let's say, the beginning of craft. The beginning of craft is that they used scanning as a new technology, scanned it, and 3D printed a handle. So actually, this flintstone, the evolution would be so much more quicker if they had 3D printers already in the Stone Age. When I do teach design to my students, then I show them, that's why I'm curious about this product actually, this art object now. The flintstone was about to organize their lives in the Stone Age. That's our flintstone today. We organize our lives. So you use still a flintstone as a craftsman, as an artist, and you use the data and you are based with it. I think you all have a smartphone so far, so you still work with a flintstone in that way. So be curious with new technologies and don't be afraid.
Thank you very much for this nice closing words. We have some time for questions now, so if you have a question, raise your hand, somebody brings the microphone. Ask it loud. You can also ask in German if you feel more comfortable with that. Yes.
Yes.
Microphone's coming. Yeah.
I will be very interested in virtual reality, augmented reality. Have you worked with it? I mean, this is a huge medium which gives completely new possibilities to design and to experience art.
So if I don't know who you're referring the question to, but
All, I guess.
So I'll start quickly, but for me, I played with the last 25 years. I've been writing patents, technologies, busy in virtual reality, augmented realities. For me, unfortunately, it's not really new, but fortunately, it's becoming now a usable thing. So there's no standards anymore. You don't have to hack your own software. Camera. I created an augmented reality app on Nokia 14 years ago. So I know the technique. Now it's really a time where literally we can use it. We can literally use it, and it's not a question about the technology anymore. And now it starts to be interesting because if somebody does shitty work, it still will look shitty on augmented reality. But if it's amazing, it's going to be amazing. And the power is unbelievable. The power is unbelievable in a way where you can augment a lot of data, you can augment a lot of stuff, not necessarily all the time produce it. And this is sort of my personal connection to the future, where I do believe things will have also lights, projection, projected onto, into, within, so object will have enhanced information. It's not just going to be the physicality, but you're starting to get time into the object because it has data. You can project the data, or you can look at an object that is transforming or telling you stories. So I think it's adding a fourth dimension, and again, all the cards are being shuffled all over again for all of us. So it's interesting, it's amazing.
Thank you. We have, I think it's well answered. Do you have another question, colleague?
Flashed.
Maybe I have a question for them. One question. You have 2 seconds.
Okay.
Are you overwhelmed? I mean, are you also overwhelmed with what's going on? Like when Apple releases a new thing where new technologies. I remember I get reactions from people that they're overwhelmed by the technology, but then they're mesmerized and they find themselves out of control already. Do you feel it, that the speed that the things come out and the tempo, it's getting crazy and crazy and crazy? It's a question for all of you.
Who wants to answer?
Who wants to answer?
Or you're cool with every invention and another revolution?
And again.
Yeah.
If not, I propose that you meet on the booth. We have the booth over there where the crew will be around, so you're invited to pass and get on with the conversation in this context. By part of the organizers, I'd like to thank you very much for your interest, for assisting our talk. We have a small gift for you which is a taruma, lucky charm for your further path. It's Japanese, and the thing is that do a wish.
Oh,
Yeah?
I can do a wish now.
No, you take it, and when you do your wish, you will print your first eye. You see the eyes are white, like white.
Okay.
And when the wish gets completed,
Try to
you
wish
will
it.
print the other, draw the other eyes.
Thank you very much.
So it is a lucky
Really
talisman.
nice. Thanks a lot.
And to the public, thank you for your attention. The next talk will be here at the stage again at 3:30 about the cooperation between an artist and the school, where glassblower Matteo Gone gets in conversation with students of Eyal. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.